going on? Is it working? Wicked. Sup? Well, my name is Multiplier, and I have another tutorial for you, and it is how to sound like Dillon Francis. Although I don't think it sounds a lot like Dillon Francis, but it is that kind of Mumberton, like high energy stuff that everyone seems to be doing right now. And Dillon Francis seems to be doing a lot of it. Although I think this sounds most like one of the noises from Delta Heavy's Nero remix he did. But yeah, anyway, it sounds a little bit like this. And then kind of a different speed to sound different. Pretty cool, right? Obviously, it's the sort of thing you kind of stick in your Mumberton or Mumbercore tracks, like all chopped up, like complex electro style. But it's that kind of like it's like wobbles, but like high pitched. Like obviously, you need to layer it up with bass and stuff, but it's the kind of basis of this kind of new jump up is what Dillon Francis is calling it. That kind of sound. Like I think Knife Party were doing it as well. Anyway, I'm going to show you roughly how I did it. It's not super dialed, super refined, because I've still got some work to do on it, because I'm going to be using some of these sounds in my EP that's going to come out over summer, and a few remixes and stuff. So, yeah, this is the basics of how it works, and then you can kind of do whatever you want. Like, use this basic idea and then build on it and make it cool. So, yeah, if it sounds kind of basic like that, you have to imagine it all chopped up and like automating or varying the rate of the wobbles like in a track. So anyway, I called it Silly Like Dilly number 2. Cool. Anyway, I'll show you how it works, because that's a lot of rambling. And quick disclaimer, don't get annoyed if you don't think this sounds like Dillon Francis. I just had to use an example because I didn't want to call yet another video how to do Mumberton noises, because I don't even think this is that much of a Mumberton noise. It's kind of one of those genreless bass music noises that everyone's doing now. So whatever, here goes. All this top section like is left as default when you do file new sound. Apart from in the oscillator, I clicked restart via gate. And what that does is it's something that a lot of people have no idea about, especially when they first use Massive, which is basically every time you trigger the note, if that is clicked, then the same sound will happen. Like they'll start all these oscillators from the same point every time, so you'll get a consistent sound. Whereas if you don't click that box, and it by default it comes unchecked, every time you trigger it, it will start off at whatever point the waveform was left last time you used it. So it can kind of confuse people, because they'll end up having a whole MIDI line and then it will sound different when they start it again, because it's kind of moved through the waveform. So best thing to do, if you're not that good at Massive, click that box, and it's really important, because it confused me at first, and it confuses a lot of people. So yeah, that's really important, and it's in the OSC section. Anyway, yeah, I got 2 oscillators going, just these 2. One detuned slightly, and then an octave apart, which is the 12 semitones. So that's an octave apart, just to give it a little bit of a thicker sound. And then I've got both going into filter 1, which is why these sliders are up to filter 1. And then I've got the filters in serial. Not that it really matters, but because it's not doing anything in filter 2. And then it's going into that filter, and then I've left the mix there. But you can basically change these however you want. It doesn't really matter, because I'm using only one filter. But I think it's best to have them all going into just one. Anyway, and yeah, what have I done next? I'm using number 5, a performer, although it really is just an oscillator, to modulate the pitch, as you see here. And you do that just by clicking that arrow and then just clicking it in the box and then dragging it up. That's how the oscillators work in Massive as far as routing goes. And then I've also got a low pass filter here, and I'm modulating the cutoff. And it's worth noting the direction as well, because you want it to open up as the pitch goes up. And basically I've got a performer here. I'm basically using this curve shape, which is like a straight line but slightly curved, because I couldn't find that shape in the normal oscillator bit, because normally what you do is you have LFO and then you kind of pick a shape here, like you'll pick one, but I couldn't find the shape I want, so I got a performer and then you click the load curve and then I just picked whichever one I want. Like if I wanted that one, I put that one in, but I want this curve. And then yeah, so I've got this performer doing all the oscillating, and I clicked restart, which is again like the restart of iGate. It means that every time you re-trigger the note, it starts off at the beginning and doesn't start off from where it left off. That's another important button, and it by default it always comes unchecked on the envelopes, and that's the equivalent one on envelopes. And on oscillators it normally comes default unchecked as well, so another thing to look out for. And then I've simply got this rate, adjusting the rate, and yeah, it's pretty simple really. Got an oscillator, LFO, in this case a performer, modulating the pitch up, and then opening up a low pass filter, and then got some effects running, just a simple phaser, and then a chorus, and that gives it some weight. Like I'll show you what it sounded like without the effects, and then you'll see what I mean. It just gives it a little bit of motion and some cool noises. So wait, let's make it a bit faster, make it sound a little bit more energetic. Yeah, you'll notice there's kind of like a really fine zone, and you can get like more accurate control if you map a macro button to it, and then say you want macro 1, you just click that little arrowy thing. Yeah, and you click it in that box and then just drag it like a little bit, and then what you've got is that whole dial going over that range, and then it basically gives you finer control. So I like that. Just sort of the right sort of speed. Normally, if you're doing it in a momentum track, about 110 BPM, you want this rate set roughly around 16ths. And you may have wondered why I haven't just clicked sync and then set 16th exactly. And that's because I personally think it's a lot better if you don't quantize everything, because the drum's normally pretty quantized and pretty straight. So if you have your wobbles slightly like close to quantization, it gives it a little bit more character, a little bit more danceability, and it's just better. And especially with so many people doing this kind of stuff, you want cooler sounds. So yeah, I'll show you the effects thing like I was supposed to. So yeah, it's not huge adding the effects, but they do make a difference. Yeah, so that's it really. I'm not sure if I've explained it, but check me out on Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, all of that stuff. Yeah, might do another video if I change the sound radically. But yeah, don't post hate comments. But actually, do post hate comments about this not sounding like Dillon Francis. But I had to pick someone because this kind of sound is used in all genres. So I picked Dillon. Sweet. Yeah. Finish.